Folks, happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Mike Hughes. I hope you guys are ready. We got some fun stuff to go over today. A couple pretty almost embarrassing videos from some folk out there, but it'll be a good one today.
And I gotta say, I know folks that tune in to me and Todd every Friday, and you're like, wait a second. He said his name is Mike and the label's Todd. Where is Todd Peterson? We watched Todd Peterson on the American Tribune Live. And I know you're confused and you're wondering what's going on. So Todd was celebrating all of the victories in the Trump cabinet. And I mean, he was going nuts. He's like, this is insane. And then I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie The Hangover, but he woke up at Mike Tyson's house with a lion. He's currently incarcerated. So we had to scramble. We brought Mike out of the bullpen to come join us. So Mike, thank you so much for filling in.
Gotta fill in when one of the other guys parties a little too hard.
There you go. And folks, do me a favor in the chat. Say hi, Mike, when you got it. But no, kidding aside, Todd's traveling. And then he had last minute stuff change. He was going to be live. So technically this week will be a little off. Todd usually runs the back end stuff. So thanks for everybody for being patient as we work through. But I got to say, Mike, what do you think about the news this last week? Has this been bonkers or what?
Oh, it's been absolutely wild. I've never seen so many people on national TV cry in 1 week.
Oh my gosh.
Just lashing out, freaking out.
Right. Yeah. And it was a week ago Tuesday. Yeah, it looked like Trump won, and it was Wednesday. Hey, they announced it Thursday, Friday. And then all of a sudden, like end of the week, rolling into the weekend, he's announcing cabinet positions. The left is completely melting down. And I got to say, that's going to be a big part of what we talk about, because the tolerant left that asks for unity and loves everybody. Mike, have they proven to be very tolerant?
No. Not at all. It's even wild just watching them all like dropping off things like Twitter and stuff like that, where they're on these social platforms and they're like, well, we're not even going to be on it now because apparently the other side has control. And be like, so wouldn't you really want to be on there to talk to people about your point so that you could, because that's the other side. You want to show that side how your point is better. But if you're just dropping out, you're never going to be able to talk to anybody and you're never going to get anybody new. It's just crazy.
Right. Well, and it's just funny, too, because we all knew, and if you're a viewer of our podcast or if you read our content on the American Tribune, these lefties are full of it. They're fake. They're liars. And even many of the voters, like they've come out saying just awful, horrible things. And honestly, there's a bunch of videos we can't even play in the first hour of the show because they're so awful. I mean, they want to send MAGA to camps. They're going to do things. So some of these clips that we're going to select are going to be not edited, but we had to be careful what we picked because Facebook would label them hate speech. So, and Mike, how's Facebook suppression been the last couple of weeks?
Oh, it seems like it's been slightly better than what it was before. And I don't know if that's just because who we have in power now. And they're just like, okay, we can't actually do all the crazy stuff that we did before because people will come after us now. Where before they had, full control and they're like, well, nobody's going to come after us because we'll just shut them down. So things have been looking better.
Nice.
For now, we'll see what happens.
Right. Yeah. For those who don't remember, the big tech suppression was happening during the Trump presidency. So that was kind of a thing. Now to start, we got to go through. Here's the updated map of all of the Trump cabinet positions that he has filled so far. So you got Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. I don't know. Might be okay. Pete Hegseth from Forest Lake, Minnesota. Mike and I both live in Minnesota. Forest Lake is about 25 minutes from where we live. Pete Hegseth. Mike, how excited are you that Pete Hegseth is going to be in charge of our military?
I mean, it's much better than what was there before. That's for sure. And it looks like a guy who can, take charge and make important decisions, unlike what was there before, which was, we'll leave it at that.
What's interesting, too, for Pete is he served in the military, decorated war veteran. as he moved up, he never moved into the upper echelons of management, which we have said on this show. The senior leadership, once you get to a certain point of the military, like you got to go through all this woke indoctrination and all the crazy stuff. Pete Hegseth has never made it that high, which the left is trying to frame as a negative. But I think it is one of the most positive things that can happen. He wasn't indoctrinated in all that garbage. In fact, he left. He is Ivy League educated at Yale and Harvard. So for those who want to rip on him and say, oh, he's just a Fox News commentator, that's a bunch of crap. Pete Hegseth is a military veteran. He's decorated. He has higher education. Since he got out of the military, he has been doing veteran support organizations where he's worked with groups that have tried to improve the care. And here's what I like best about Pete Hegseth's choice. And Mike, you might not even know this. Donald Trump was going to choose Pete Hegseth in 2017 to be in charge of Veterans Affairs. And he sat down with Pete and they talked, and Pete does something similar in some other nonprofits. And they decided that the pushback would be too great. So they backed off the nomination. Pete stayed. He did his weekend thing at Fox with his other stuff. Now, this time around, not only is President Trump bringing him in the administration, he is putting him in charge of the military. I don't know about you, Mike, but is that like the biggest middle finger that he can give?
Yeah, it is. And it's, all that, because we've seen so much of it now where the left has been ragging on Pete and making up stuff and saying that he's only been in there for like 5 years, which none of that, is true. But I don't even know where they're getting that information, just making stuff up on their talk shows, I guess.
Well, and it's funny, too, because they've got to, they can say whatever they want. They can frame it, oh, Pete's a Fox News anchor, or, like he's Sean Hannity or some loser. The guy does do speaking on Fox News, but that doesn't preclude him. Hey, I got to give a shout out, too, to K-Gun Girl. Welcome on. It's our first Rumble chat over there. We love Rumble. By the way, after the first hour, we're going to switch over to Rumble only, where we're going to show some of those videos and talk about some of those things that we can't do on these platforms. Next nomination, and this one made the left's head completely explode, Matt Gaetz. And he nominated Matt Gaetz for head of the Department of Justice. Matt Gaetz has had the Department of Justice target him with these crappy charges saying he was involved in illicit activities. Matt Gaetz is a political outsider. He funds his own campaigns through small donations. How excited are you guys for Matt Gaetz?
Should be good. Oh, I point one thing out real quick. I just see if get that up here. Oh, it's not. Can't comments.
Mike's struggling. Are you trying to pull Toby O'Connor?
I just want Toby O'Connor to know that. So before this election, I have always voted Libertarian. But I really wanted to see some fixes, and I agree with you that like we need Trump there to do something, because something has to change.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Trump is going to fix the broken system. I think it's more than that. I think Trump is going to tear down the broken system.
That's what we need.
I'm getting my bathroom remodeled right now, right? And the thing's however many years old. And we got way past the point of, oh, I can just clean this or recaulk the sink. We needed to gut it. The bathroom's pulled out. The toilet's pulled out. The cabinet's pulled out. It's all pulled out. We threw it all in the dumpster, and we're starting over. And there's sheetrocking and all that stuff. So that's what we need to do to the federal government. We don't need a polish and spit shine. We need a full-on remodel. Gut the thing, tear it down to the studs, shrink government, and let's go. Hey, shout out too. We got Rob over there. Trump is the best thing to happen to us. We say that all the time on this podcast. Can you imagine a world if Trump didn't come down the escalator? Republicans would still think guys like Mitt Romney are great, and guys like Mike would just be totally disillusioned. Guys like RFK, it's crazy. Oh, hey, I got to give a shout out too to Paul over on Rumble. For those who don't know, Paul Reese, owner of Split Rock Coffee. You can go over to splitrockcoffee.com. I love my Split Rock coffee. You can use promo code Todd10 to save 10%. Now, Todd's not here today, so it would be really funny if you ordered with Todd's promo code when Todd's not here. It was fantastic. Oh, and K-Gun Girl's asking, how's Pete's in the movie? For those who don't know, I do the Wayne Dupree podcast during the week. And I was talking about last night, we had the kids over. We watched the movie Tombstone with Tombstone pizza. And it was fantastic. First time Amanda, my stepdaughter, had seen the movie Tombstone. And that is the energy I want Trump to have in his administration. I want it after they shot his brother and they killed his brother. And he rounds up the posse to go get the bad guys. That's what I want out of Trump. It is phenomenal. Going through a few more of these nominations, RFK Jr. nominated for Health and Human Services. And this is fascinating. Mike, you kind of like RFK Jr.
No, I'm more than kind of like him. It's much more than kind of like him. That is somebody I want up there. That's somebody who has new, fresh ideas. He's not in people's pockets. He brings up things where he's distasteful about things that have happened in the past. And I appreciate that he talks about those things.
Yeah, and I got to say, and I got to be careful how I phrase this.
Yeah.
You are going to see smears about RFK Jr. I love him because he reminds me of Trump, where he just says, here's the thing. Like they talk about the brain worm he got or the time he killed a bear. And he's like, yeah, that happened. And after decades of politicians lying, I mean, the mainstream media was telling us Joe Biden's fine for 3 years when you saw he was walking around like an idiot and clearly not all there. But now you can see like a guy like RFK Jr. Like, yeah, just tell me what they're coming after you for. The other thing that's interesting, and this was a conversation I had with my future son-in-law, and this is where I got to be careful because we were talking about the V word, vaccines, right? And RFK Jr. has been labeled in the media as a vaccine skeptic. And for me, I think vaccines as a general thing should be good. I'm concerned because the federal government passed a law in 1986 that made vaccine manufacturers not able to be held liable for negative outcome. We saw it again with COVID. When the COVID vaccine happened, they passed legislation that any negative outcomes you couldn't sue them for. So you take a big money company, you give them immunity from being sued, and I'm like, I have questions. And ever since then, all the studies that have been done, and this is where I got into it with my future son-in-law. He's like, oh, well, that's been proven to be safe. That's been proven to be safe. And I'm just like, well, who's paying for these studies? And he's like, well, Big Pharma. Okay. So let me get this straight. So Big Pharma pays for the studies that says everything's healthy, everything's fine, and they can't be sued. Like, I have questions. And I hearken back to Big Tobacco. Big Tobacco for decades, they had doctors coming out saying, oh, tobacco's fine. Oh, yeah, you're not going to get cancer. Nothing's going to happen. And then it came out that, no, tobacco's bad for you. We need to put warning labels on it. People are getting things. But all the studies that were paid for by Big Tobacco. And Big Tobacco said, yeah, this is fantastic. And anytime the same person who profits from something is the one who pays for the study, like, color me concerned. I don't know about you.
With those, I'm big into conspiracies, and I really like to go to antique stores, and at my cabin I have all these old advertisements where it'll be like, telling kids to drink coffee, telling pregnant women that this brand of cigarette's the best for it. And I like to show those so when people come and see that, be like, listen, are you sure we trust those guys? Because look what they've done in the past. These are all real that were in magazines and published on TV. Like, I don't know. I'm not very trusting of that.
And that's funny you say about the antique stuff, because if you go back, if you tell somebody, you walk up to a 20-year-old and like, they used to have commercials where doctors were endorsing cigarettes. Yeah. They'd be like, whatever. Why did that conspiracy? And you're like, look, I have it. Like,
yeah, it's right here. It happened.
Yeah, I have my camel cash. Oh, hey, we even got Carrie Matz here. Good morning, Todd. Jason and Todd impersonator. I don't know about you. Todd might have got more handsome. He got a little younger, but what are you gonna do? All right, we got to crank through this first video, folks. In case you're wondering, and we could go through the rest of the cabinet. Doug Collins, I like. Kristi Noem, interested to see him give a chance. This graphic wasn't updated. He announced Burgum, who ran for president, is going to be in charge of the interior. Tulsi, Well, I guess we should probably comment on Tulsi. Mike,
Yeah.
what do you think about Tulsi?
Well, I think that's a really positive side because that's somebody who could like was once, other side and has now been like, wait a minute, wait a tick. We've been being tricked, lied to, they're not doing anything. I may have to switch. So that's, I think, very important to see, is because you actually have somebody who has slightly other side views coming on to be like, nah, let's work together and figure this stuff out.
Tulsi was pursuing the Democratic nomination for president in 2020. She is now part of President Trump's cabinet. Think of that. Now, I know there's some concerns about Tulsi. I don't agree with everything she thinks. I think her working with the to clean up some of the intelligence community, I like. I love the fact that he included her in the cabinet because, same thing with RFK. There's a million things I don't agree with RFK on. I agree we need to clean up our food. We need to figure out pharma. And I love to say this on the show, but the fact that it's the Food and Drug Administration, so your big pharma is supervised by the same group that are feeding you all this awful food. It's crazy. It is flat out nuts. The other thing, it's not on this graphic, Vivek and Elon are in charge of the Department of Government Efficiency. And if you're not following them on Twitter, you need to, because their announcements, what they're finding is it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Carrie, where's Rona? Boom boom Schwami on the chart. Not on the chart yet. We're getting it updated. And Barr brings up a good point too. Don't forget, Trump was a Democrat before he ran the first time. And here's what I'm going to say too. We're seeing this big reorganization of political parties where Republicans, MAGA, many people in the movement were not Republicans pre-Donald Trump. We thought they were either warmongers or they were, the rich elite country club losers. And they didn't represent the working class. They said they did. They acted like they did. They never did. Now, when President Trump came down, we really got a feeling he was actually going to try to make life better for guys like me and Mike and you folks watching. Democrat Party's going through the same transition. Now the Democrats a party. Who are all the elite celebrities? Mike, who do all the elite celebrities endorse?
They all endorse Kamala. They right. Sure did.
How about all the big businesses?
Yeah, all of them endorse all of that stuff now. It's wild how everything has changed like that. It didn't used to be like that, and now you have Coca-Cola and giant things like Nike endorsing things that they would have never done before. It's kind of like, what? I thought those guys were the right, because that's what you always hear. The left is like, oh, the billionaires make all the money. They're the people that are endorsing all of your stuff. What are you talking about? They're you. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's utterly just fascinating. And one more story before we get to our first video. So my buddy Jim, Jim, right, Mike? You've had lunch with Jim.
Yep.
Jim's a Democrat. We've been friends for 20-some, 30 years.
Great friends.
And great friends. We get together every couple weeks, great friends. We disagree politically. But it's fascinating because he has grown to hate Trump because he consumes mainstream media, and Trump's Hitler, Trump's this, Trump's that. Which Todd did a great video for those who haven't seen it, breaking down. Democrats are going through a thing because the Democrat voter really thought Trump was Hitler, and now they see Joe Biden posing for pictures with Trump. And what do you mean? I thought he was Hitler. We shouldn't be nice to him. And they just realized we're being lied to. But 4 years ago, he loved Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard so much. He supported Tulsi in the 2020 run, and he bought a bunch of Tesla stock, and he loved Elon. I mean, this guy, when they had a new Tesla, we would go check out the car, even though neither one of us could afford it. And now that they've gone over to the MAGA movement, he's like, I can't believe it. And it's like, at some point, maybe you need to realize these guys are waking up. And instead of disavowing Tulsi and Elon, you need to accept the fact that the Democrat Party is awful. They are not the party that they were 20, 30 years ago, where it used to just have bad ideas. Now there's bad people running it. So, all right. Should we see how Geraldo Rivera, I think, had one of the best responses that we can play to the Matt Gaetz nomination. So, folks, let's take in a little bit of Geraldo Rivera.
Well, all I can tell you, Leland, is great to do your show. that when I heard that Matt Gaetz was picked to be Attorney General, I threw up in my mouth. I think it is a horrible, creepy choice. I have no idea why he did it. The others are, controversial, but I think ultimately eminently defensible. Pete Hegseth, a terrific guy, patriot, war hero, twice awarded the Bronze Star. He will do, has a steep learning curve in defense secretary, but I think he'll do it. Matt Gaetz, on the other hand, now has access to the files of his own, sex trafficking investigation from a couple of years ago, and obstruction investigation. This is not just a political figure.
Yeah, I don't think you're understanding. I mean, I know you heard the segment before. I don't think you're getting it. That Donald Trump didn't appoint him in spite of all that. It was because of all that. Because Donald Trump and a lot of people think that Matt Gaetz was persecuted by the DOJ. And Donald Trump, who was investigated upteen zillion times by the DOJ and the Russian collusion hoax and now indicted by the DOJ, ... on and on and on. It kind of makes sense that he would want somebody ultimately loyal at the Department of Justice. But put that aside for a second. The fact that all Democrats are doing, yourself included, is talking about how terrible Matt Gaetz is, means they're not talking about the things that actually the American people told us in this election they care about.
Well, as I understand it, President-elect Trump was absolutely keen on ending the weaponization of the Justice Department. That guy is the weapon that Trump will use to destroy his enemies in the DOJ, wreck its independence.
Mike, here's what I love. They put Merrick Garland in place. Merrick Garland worked with 2 or 3 different states to go after prosecuting Donald Trump. They have locked up 3,000 people from January 6th. They have gone after grandma who wasn't even in the Capitol building. They're locking up abortion protesters. Mike, you run all the articles on our social media. How many times do you see an article about some weaponization of the Department of Justice and you're like, are you kidding me?
More than I should, that's for sure. It like all the time, constantly. It never stops. And I'm pretty sure that's not how you're supposed to use the law. But, I guess they just do what they wanted. Well, they did, not no more.
Well, right. And I was going to say, Edward, with a hot comment, love it, reap the whirlwind, reap, you son of a bitch, lip darts. It sounds like that was a movie quote from Tombstone, reap the whirlwind. But I got to say, and the host on News Nation makes a really great point. It's President Trump, when he was elected, raise your hand if you wanted him to prosecute Hillary. Raise your hand if you were sick and tired of these elite politicians getting away with stuff and breaking the law. Donald Trump took the high road in 2016, and he'll talk about it now. He's like, yeah, I could have prosecuted her. I thought it was bad for the country. And then you know what they did? Then what they did is they went after his business, his family, his followers. They tried to lock him in jail. They tried convicting him and throwing him in Rikers. They tried to ruin the man and anybody that worked with him. Lawyers that worked with him lost their law license. They went after them hardcore. And so now President Trump's like, okay, I'm going to bring people on that are not going to be that I don't care if they're loyalists, but these are people that understand the situation we're in. And this is where conservatives need to understand. People can say like, oh, we want to go back to normal. But if you just go back to normal, that's not going to fix anything. Because if we don't hold these people accountable for all the things they've done, they're only going to keep doing it. Because like Mike in Minneapolis, what happened during the George Floyd's riots to Minneapolis?
It got burned down to the ground.
And did anybody pay any penalties for that?
No, not
and
really.
So now what's crime and life like in Minneapolis?
They were basically just free to do whatever. I mean, they were like, hey, we got a curfew. Didn't do anything.
Right, because nobody was held accountable for the crimes they committed. Nobody stopped doing what they're doing. And
I mean, they for John over there, they really did burn it down to the ground. You should look up some pictures on when that happened. I mean, it was like in flames. The sky, I live 30 miles away, and you could see the sky was on fire. It was something else, that's for sure.
So Geraldo pretty much sums up Matt Gaetz. And folks, I don't know about you, I want Matt Gaetz to go in there. I want Matt Gaetz to absolutely treat every politician and corrupt bureaucrat in Washington exactly how they've treated President Trump during his 4 years. Oh, hey, and show favorite Fally's here. Yeah. I've had a lot of popcorn this week smiling at the meltdowns.
Yeah, we all have.
It is. But now
movies.
Now we got to go to the next thing, though, because Democrats, they called us Hitler. They called you garbage. They've done nothing but say President Trump's awful and this kind of stuff. But hey, Mike, you might be surprised to realize, guess what Chuck Schumer wants now?
I guess we'll see.
Contested election now comes to an end. Now let me turn to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Another closely contested election now comes to an end. To my Republican colleagues, I offer a word of caution in good faith. Take care not to misread the will of the people, and do not abandon the need for bipartisanship. After winning an election, the temptation may be to go to the extreme. We've seen that happen over the decades, and it's consistently backfired on the party in power. So instead of going to the extremes, I remind my colleagues that this body is most effective when it's bipartisan. If we want in the next 4 years the Senate to be as productive as the last 4, the only way that will happen is through bipartisan cooperation. Democrats will be ready to do what we have consistently done. Work with both sides when the opportunity arises. Democrats will never abandon our values, but neither will we reject an opportunity to move the ball forward to make people's lives better when we can. The question is now whether or not Republicans are willing to do the same. To my colleagues on the other side, once again, do not abandon bipartisanship. It's the best and most effective way to get things done. It was true in the last 4 years and will be true in the years to come.
Okay, hang on. Let me start this one off, right? Because it was hilarious because he was literally like, don't take your power and go be abusive because it's not going to end well for you if you do that. That's literally what you guys did the last 4 years and why it didn't end well for you. What are you talking about?
It is. I saw this speech on C-SPAN and I'm like, you have to be kidding me. You got up in front of the American people. Let's be bipartisan. Let's work together. I'm old enough to remember when they impeached Donald Trump 2 times. I'm old enough to remember when they tried to throw him in jail. I'm old enough to remember when you wanted to throw all. There's still over 2,000 people in jail from January 6th, many of which didn't even enter the Capitol. And they, Democrats, student loans, Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that. They try it again. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, they try it again. Oh, you do that. They try it again. Oh, you do that. They keep trying it again. And it's, yeah, all right. Gary, do as I say, not as I do. Fact check, true. Valley, I'm LMAO right now. K-Gun Girl, 100%. Yeah, how are these people serious? How are these people like, oh, let's have unity. Let's work together.
I mean, I guess maybe the reason they're doing that now is because they tried the power trip. It failed miserably for them, and maybe now they are coming on the other. Like, oh, hang on, maybe let's try to do it the right way now.
Yeah, you don't really believe that, do you, Mike?
No,
right.
It's trying to be positive.
They're trying to sell you that, but that is 100% not true. I'm like, Mike, you're gonna make my IQ drop. I'll tell you what the real fear is. Paul Reese nails it. Schumer belongs in prison. Chuck Schumer, if he was subjected to all the same digging in that they did on Trump and others, do you think Chuck Schumer would be walking around free? Or do you think they'd find where all the bodies are buried? And yeah, Barb nails it. Jesus, Schumer has a very short memory. Talk about CYOA. I mean, seriously, like, does he not remember 3 weeks ago? But these guys, here's what you need to understand. Chuck Schumer knows this isn't true. He is a pathological liar. He has no problem going on the floor of the Senate and lying straight to your teeth. He has zero issue doing that. It is insane.
Yeah, it's not good, that's for sure. And that's even, there are some people on what we would say is our side that I distrust as much as Schumer up here though too, right? They're like all in it together, just making stuff up, lying through their teeth, just trying to look good in front of the people. And that's what I'm really excited about with Trump and all the new people coming in, is that it's new blood. And like you said, if we could tear it all down and then rebuild it is really what we need to do, because people like him who have been in there for so long, they've practiced that lying every day, all day long. They're good at it, right? Like they can put on a straight face. If you practice anything enough, you're going to be good at it. So
yeah, some of this stuff just blows me away. Now, Mike, no Freedom from the Press podcast will be complete without talking about the crazy people on The View. I mean, if you're talking insane, let's see how Whoopi Goldberg's handling things.
In the swing states, and going to run again in 4 years, they better start getting known, particularly in the swing states, in addition to the primary states.
I'm sorry, when you have one candidate who has been running for 12 years, who lies and changes things, I appreciate that people are having a hard time. Me too.
Yeah.
I work for a living. If I had all the money in the world, I would not be here. Okay? So I'm a worker.
Hey guys, I didn't fact check this. Someone said on the Twitter comments that Whoopi Goldberg is worth like $60 million. And I believe it because she's been in the movie industry for decades. She's been doing this stupid TV show for decades. Like Whoopi Goldberg has clearly made some money, but she's got the gall to tell her panel and her audience that it's the grocery store owners that are the pigs. They're the selfish ones because they raise prices of eggs and bananas and they're pocketing all.
We had to get a little Todd on there. Mike, what do you think about Whoopi Goldberg?
It just goes way over my head. I don't understand. I don't know where they're coming from. How can you say something like that when you have so much? You have more money than most of us make in our entire, like collectively make in our lifetime. Like, what are you talking about? If you had all the money, you wouldn't be here. Also, does that mean that you don't actually care about anything? And if you had the money, you just dip out some island somewhere and not worry about anything? So you're actually not fighting for anything. You're just doing it because you don't have billions? Not entirely sure. I don't know where she's going with that.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, if you don't believe us, Todd mentioned it on the video. So shout out to Todd. He's still doing videos this week when he's traveling. He's going to be here live, but we found a way to get him on the show. Yeah, a quick Google search of Whoopi Goldberg's net worth. They estimated at $60 million. $60 million, and you're acting like you're poor. I got to say, if you take, like, we got a couple hundred people, a few thousand that'll see this, 10, 20,000 across all the platforms. If we had us all up, we might not make $60 million combined. and she's acted like she's living in the poorhouse. But what's funny, too, is she started her spiel talking about how Trump's been running for so long and how like they need to start introducing new candidates to get them ready, because they're making the argument that Kamala Harris, because she had only run for 120 days or however long it was, that's why she lost. So, Mike, let's kind of break some of that down. So, how long ago did you know Joe Biden wasn't going to be the nominee?
A while ago.
Yeah, like a year or two, right?
Yep.
Like Mike runs videos of Joe Biden being brain dead, falling down, tripping,
not being able to talk.
Right, not able to talk. So it's clear they couldn't run him. And people hated Joe Biden. Like they were mad about the economy, about gas prices, about all that stuff. So then they tried to run a primary. Dean Phillips from Minnesota actually was running against Joe Biden, but they wouldn't have debates. They wouldn't run a real primary. And if they would have run a primary, there's a 0% chance they would have picked Kamala. So, like, Kamala is just awful. So then, Mike, since Kamala was the nominee, what has your feeling been on the comments, the clips, the videos, all the things?
Oh, man, no, it doesn't seem like anybody wanted her, right? Like, it seems like she just got tossed in there for certain reasons that I'm not going to talk about, but not anything that she's going to do. And they tried to run on that, which was super foolish and obviously failed them miserably. But it's, they just went on the she's not Trump. But I never seen anybody say anything nice about her or support her or even let me know what she's going to do other than I'm not Trump.
Right.
What?
Well, and Trump is Hitler. For those who
that's right. Super Trump bad guy. Bad orange man.
Fally nails it. These are absolutely bitter witches. Wooly is a multimillionaire. And Debbie has an interesting take, too. I hope The View gets canceled. Debbie, there's a chance that, so MSNBC and CNN, Mike, today, what was the article you ran about CNN?
That they're cutting lots of people, a couple hundred, I think it was, even some top executive people running low. Money's not doing good. Their ratings aren't good, so they gotta cut stuff. And I don't know how well The View's doing, but they might be on that block. So it turns
out right after the election, MSNBC, CNN, all these shows that have been lying to people tuned off, and like their viewership dropped like 20-30% overnight, and they were already financially strapped. Same thing has been reported to happen with The View. So they're actually looking at redoing The View, bringing in a couple MAGA hosts, because they have the pretend Republicans on there that hate Trump, and like Meghan McCain was on there who hates Trump, but they're actually looking at bringing populist conservatives on The View, which would be just phenomenal. But these people are so out of touch. They don't know what Americans want. They have no idea what's going on. And Mike, is it time to show? Because one thing we like to say on this podcast, too, is you always got to watch. There's all this stuff distracting about Matt Gaetz, about the cabinet nominees, about all these things. And there's going to be things that you haven't seen. And this video, I guarantee you haven't seen. And this was on C-SPAN. This is Anthony Blinken this week.
The United States continues to step up. We've obligated just recently and pushed out the door another $8 billion in security assistance for Ukraine. That was in September. Another almost $500 million just a few weeks ago. And President Biden is committed to making sure that every dollar we have at our disposal will be pushed out the door between now and January 20th.
No, it's absurd. That's my money. Can I use it for me and everybody who lives here?
Right.
We got a fair amount of issues that we could solve, especially with that amount of money that they just tossed over there.
It's remarkable. We are just short of $36 trillion in debt. We're broke, folks. The United States is broke. We've shipped hundreds of millions and billions over to Ukraine. And Anthony Blinken, as he winds down, getting ready for the handoff, one of his biggest concerns is how do we push any money that we can over to Ukraine? Not to America, not to Florida that got hit with hurricanes or South Carolina, but pushing it over to Ukraine. It is absolutely ridiculous. And I got to say, too, when you look at the money laundering, when we talk about investigations, I hope someday they get over and they do some accounting over in Ukraine, because I am betting we're going to see a lot of money that probably went in people's pockets that shouldn't have.
Yep.
So while we're talking about all this exciting stuff, you've got to keep an eye out for what's happening with guys like Anthony Blinken. Now, here's going to be one big procedural thing that you have to watch. In September, they passed a continuing resolution of spending bill that funded the government. And ideally, the government's supposed to be funded for a full year. They're supposed to do it once a year through a budget process. It never gets done. It hasn't been done it's been done one time, I think, in the last 25 years. So they do these continuing resolutions and they do these omnibus bills, and they funded the government in September for 90 days. So the new budget expires December 20th. So on December 20th, they're going to have to decide how they're going to fund the government. And what's currently on the table is they're trying to pass a 1-year omnibus bill, which means all the spending levels of the government will be set and locked in for a year, so that when President Trump takes office in January, he's not going to be able to implement some of his things because they've already determined the spending. So, Mike, as an American taxpayer, how does that make you feel?
Oh, it hurts me on my soul of all my money that's not being used for anything for the people that, live in the country I'm supposed to be part of. It's a lot of money that just goes away, and then we don't. And I understand, right? Like, our federal taxes don't go to like our roads and our counties and stuff, but it sucks when you go through a pothole on the road and then you hear there's billions of dollars being thrown over here. You see homeless people out on the streets, and you're like, some of those people are like veterans, and like they're down on hard times. Not everybody you see out on the streets is like just a bum, right? Like something happened, but there's no way for us to. We don't help them at all. But all of that money just gone. We could have solved a lot of issues here.
Yeah. And I got to say, I got to give a shout out to Colleen over on one of the Facebook pages. Wanda Carpenter, millions have come to the conclusion that the Democrats are so corrupt and evil. Democrats used to be the greatest. I never liked Democrat policies personally, because I think anything you do that encourages welfare and those sorts of things are really difficult to, like, it's just not prosperous for the nation. Like, there's between a safety net, paying people not to work. I did, as a young man, vote for Democrats because I looked at the Republican Party, and the Republican Party was corrupt. And because the Republican Party was so corrupt, I'm like, they're saying the right things, but they're not actually doing the right things. And I couldn't support all their initiatives, what they were doing, all those sorts of things. So like Paul Wellstone, who was from Minnesota, like the guy didn't have very good ideas. He was a good guy. I thought he really wanted to make life better for Americans. He just had bad guys. And this was kind of the point I was making to my friend Jim earlier. I had mentioned to talk about Tulsi and Elon. Like, he likes more social programs than I like. But we could both approach like we want what's best for America. Democrat Party has become everything they hated. Everything the Democrat Party stood for in 1980, they no longer stand for. And it's interesting because Trump, who was a Democrat in the 80s and 90s, and he became a conservative or became a Republican, now he's something entirely different. Now it's MAGA, and it's a coalition of average citizens who want to do things to improve America. It's astounding to see the political transformation.
It really, I mean, it's captured people like me who definitely was not on the side before, right? Like, and now it's like, oh, here we go. We're going to make some changes. We're for the people. We actually want to help out all the citizens. And that's what I can get behind.
Well, and another fascinating thing too, and at the end of the podcast, Mike will be dipping out here in a little bit. We're going to have Ellis, another member of the American Tribune, who's going to be hopping on, and we're going to have Will. But Mike, how much different do you look at America? Because you went in, you had kind of a wild childhood, and then you entered like corporate world, working retail, and now you're a business owner. And how does it change just the way you view the world?
I mean, it changes the whole thing. Everything changes, especially when you don't, like, being in the corporate world, you constantly are berated with things that you have to do that you don't necessarily agree with. But then getting out of it and being able to actually spend some time and look into things, it changes your entire viewpoint on everything. That's, especially when you start getting hit really hard with taxes and you're like, what is going on?
Fun story this year. I helped Mike do his taxes last year. We had a pretty successful year in the business, and Mike, we were going through it. I'm like, okay, Mike, here's how big a check you need to write to the federal government for last year, and now for this coming year, every 4 months you need to write this big check. And Mike, how did that make you feel?
There was some rage I've never even felt before, where it was like, wait a minute, what's happening? And then you look at all the other, programs that are going on to help other people that don't have anything. And it's like, why am I getting penalized for working really hard, quitting a job, starting stuff up, and like spending lots of time working as hard as I can to make money. And then you just take it from me? What? No.
Just doesn't make any sense.
No.
All right. Well, hey, it looks like Ellis is in the green room, Mike. Before we go, what would you like to say to the audience? Share some final thoughts.
Well,
and thanks for filling in for Todd, by the way.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Anytime. It's a lot of fun. I really like seeing all the comments on here. I want to thank everybody for, watching us and coming in, joining in with our conversations, saying fun things. So it's just really exciting to talk to other people, even if we're just responding to your messages that are on the same wavelength as us, might be slightly different, but it's nice to be part of a community that we're all working together to try to fix some things.
That's awesome. Yeah, folks, we see you, and you need to understand you're not alone. There are like-minded people like yourself out there. All right, well, Mikey, thanks for hopping on. Go do some more work. Maybe we'll see you this afternoon. We're going to bring Ellis on.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody. Have a nice day.
Ellis,
what
in the heck is going on?
Not much. Just getting some work done this morning. I see I missed the memo on the white Tribune hat. I saw Mike had one. I need to get one for myself.
It's funny. We joke with Ellis because he came out of the corporate world, and Ellis still speaks corporate. So, like, when I need to tell somebody they're stupid that we're working with, like, this guy is a freaking idiot, I have to be like, Ellis, can you translate this in a way that doesn't come out as negatively? But Ellis didn't realize that we do have a dress code, and the dress code is the American Tribune hat. And Ellis was a little nervous, like a couple weeks ago when we brought him on our podcast, and he's like, I don't want to do it. Like, no, I'm okay. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. So get with Todd. He'll get you a hat. And see, for some of us like me, where you start going bald, you kind of need the hat. Otherwise, the glare gets out there. Yeah. And now, Ellis, we got to start too. Introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you? What do you do? What did you do before?
Yeah, certainly. So as Jason mentioned, I came out of the corporate world. I was working for just a massive bank doing corporate finance, and the opportunity came up about, 8 months ago, I think at this point, and to go full-time with the Tribune, and took that opportunity. So now I'm here, do most of our written content on our website. So handle that stuff, and then just kind of work on the back end with some marketing and e-com. And that's sort of my main role here.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm going to say it. When you see a typo, when you see a headline change, I'll be sharing Ellis's personal emails in the comments. Call him and a cell phone. Call him day or night, Ellis. We got Carrie on here. Carrie always is very meticulous about looking for spelling errors and whatnot. So we need to make sure that they can get a hold of you, give you a buzz.
Just throw my address in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll tear it loose. Well, Ellis and I are going to talk about a couple of things here. First thing we got to go through is the awakening that's happening about how the media has lost trust. And I mentioned earlier when Mike was on how the ratings on CNN, MSNBC, all these things have plummeted since the election, and Democrats are going through some things right now. And Ellis, you write a lot of articles. Do you get this sense that the average Democrat voter is in absolute disbelief at what happened?
Yeah, for a lot of them, the media misled them so egregiously. I don't know how they can trust the media after the past 8 years, but some of them still bought the narratives they were pushing this go around. They thought the election was going to be neck and neck. They think Trump's going to be the second coming of Hitler. They think all these delusional things. And yeah, a lot of them are just kind of going through this mental health crisis right now because they've been lied to and misled about the state of politics.
We'll only pop up this video and then we'll chat.
The ratings for MSNBC: Morning Joe down 39.6, Andrea Mitchell down 39.7, Ari Melber down 49.6, Joy Reid down 54.6. All in the last week. Lawrence O'Donnell.
Two ways way up over that same period.
That's right. Lawrence O'Donnell down 60.6. Stephanie Ruhle, the big winner, down 67% in ratings. They lost the trust of the American people. Chris Wallace this morning announced that he's leaving CNN to go to a platform. The thing is, my view, I've been asked probably by about 10 to 12 reporters in the last 48 to 72 hours, how did we miss this again? And I said, we didn't, you did. And I say this respectfully, but I was just like, look, here are the guests that we've had on. Here are the conversations. Here are the places. We didn't miss this. You did. And the idea that you're still thinking that we missed it, 7 days out from an election, shows you how bad they are at what they do. And so I think that there's a lack of trust that exists, and as Dan said, very, very apropos, that there people are going, great, I'll tune you out and I'll go find somewhere else. And Mark's right. I mean, look at the numbers. This show keeps growing every day because people, I think, are saying, I can find out more honestly what's happening on this platform than anywhere else. So look, that's why I love America. Every time someone says journalism is dying, I go over to Substack. Look at these different shows. I mean, there's a proliferation of media. It's in a different form, but it is growing and flourishing, just not in a traditional way.
I will say this, and it's at the risk of repeating myself. The very same executives and producers and anchors and correspondents and writers who covered and participated in the cover-up of the Biden decline, and then after the decline had to be exposed and acknowledged, never acknowledged their role in it. All those people are covering the Trump administration. They also covered the campaign. I don't understand how they think they can cover the Trump campaign fairly or Trump administration fairly or be seen as covering the Trump administration fairly if they don't acknowledge their role in the conspiracy and their failure to acknowledge it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And it impacts the Democratic Party because we've talked to many people on this platform, and Nick, you suggested you share that view, who said, I couldn't vote for Kamala Harris because of the media. Not the only reason, but
there's
a
few
reason.
things, obviously your platform too, but I think as being someone living in Manhattan, right? I don't know if anyone read Josh Barrow's Why Dems Deserve to Lose in the Atlantic. And, I'm not exactly aligned with him on all his views, but he went through this kind of distillation of anyone living in New York right now, just to seem like the low quality of life. And then the media basically pretending that, if you have that voice, you're lying or it's just not true. And I don't know. I just think it's just not a reflection of they're not trying to listen to people. They're just trying to get their point of view across, unfortunately. And it manifests in that way. And it manifests in like you said, Mark, the inability to call balls and strikes with the current president, unfortunately.
Ellis, you lived through the Joe Biden mental decline era. Todd and I on this podcast, one of our first episodes over 12 months ago was Joe Biden won't be the nominee. We had to be real careful. We had to layer on all this. This is our opinion and whatnot. But how many articles in the last year did you write about Joe Biden not being there?
Innumerable. I mean, it was just so obvious. And kind of our role in independent media, they talked about in that video, like independent media has been driving discourse. The mainstream media wasn't going to talk about it. They were going to prop up Joe Biden the whole time. And yeah, it was kind of our role to step in and call this out for the American people and say, look, this guy is not fit to serve. So yeah, we wrote about that a ton.
Well, and it was funny too, because when we were writing about that, and we have a lot of offline conversations where the writers and stuff, how many times did you have to use allegedly or like couch your language where somebody can go on CNN and can say Donald Trump is Hitler and no threat of a fact check. But if you say Joe Biden is mentally incompetent and shouldn't be serving as president, which was obvious as a nose on someone's face, you couldn't say that. You'd have to corporate it up, right? Else how would you have to say something like that?
You got to say allegedly, very liberal use of the word allegedly. And, you're quoting the opinion of others and you say many believe, or so-and-so believes this. You have to really dance around it. You can't outright state it or we'll be punished for it. So.
And it's funny because working in the written content part, do you ever read liberal content? Because we're really particular about what and how we say things, what topics we can address, but what things we can go into, all those sorts of things. Because we know NewsGuard will fact check us or they'll try to ding us. I just found out yesterday that they're fact checking the Wayne Dupree podcast on tampons being readily available in men's rooms in Minnesota, even though it's like common knowledge, and not just schools. I'm talking about like in colleges and bars and restaurants. It's crazy. But do you ever read this liberal stuff and go, God, it'd be easier to write for them because they can say whatever they want?
Yeah, I mean, like they I think I will say most mainstream outlets, they don't outright state, they state it very corporate-y, kind of the way I speak, but you can always tell where they're coming from. You can always see their intentions behind the way they write it, but they do kind of skirt around it somewhat, I will say.
Yeah. Oh, I got to give a shout out to Fally too. I can't wait for the daily press conference, watching the fake news attack Trump. Oh, good times again. Here's going to be a fun plot twist. And he just announced this last night. I haven't seen if it's officially been done. He's going to give press passes to podcasts instead of just mainstream media. Because if you look at this election cycle, part of the analysis they're saying is the way that President Trump, part of what won was him going on Rogan and him going on all these other podcasts. And so can you imagine a press room with Alex Jones and Benny Johnson, Tim Pool? Like, how excellent will that be, Ellis?
I mean, like a lot of people have said, like there's no reason that you should have MSNBC, CNN, or whatever network sitting in the front row of press conferences, because they've just lied to the American people. They've been so wrong. They don't deserve to sit there. So instead, invite your Tucker Carlsons, your Tim Pools to sit up there, because they're doing real journalism. Like, they deserve to be up there in the front row more than these legacy networks. I mean, that would be awesome.
Well, and it's funny too, because you got like 2 or 3 people maybe in the room that ask a real question.
Yeah.
And every time, how many times do you have to write an article that somebody asked a real question to KJP and she just couldn't answer it?
Well, Peter Doocy's famous for that. We obviously have tons of Doocy articles. That's most of what I see, because everything else is just inconsequential from those press briefings. But those are always funny when Doocy asks a question.
They are spectacular. Hey, shout out to Francis too. Great show as usual. Francis, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate your support. And and Mr. Andy No. Oh, let's get Andy No in there asking questions. This is going to be spectacular. All right, Alice. Well, we got to wind down the Facebook part of the show here. So for those who don't know, by the way, folks, thanks for watching the show. We still got a half hour to go. But we stream this show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. My personal favorite platform, Rumble. Why? They don't censor what we say. Their systems aren't always as easy to use as some of the other ones. The back end is a little more complicated. They're getting that stuff smoothed out. But Rumble is a true free speech platform. So is X. We like to stream on Facebook, YouTube, some of those programs, because that's where the audience is. We have great followers on these platforms. But we encourage you to move over to Rumble, because we got another half hour. Ellis, who comes with a financial background, is going to start talking to us about some of his crazy financial speculation. He's going to explain why Bitcoin's 90,000 and telling you where to invest all your money if you want to be rich. No, I'm kidding. We don't give financial advice. But we do have to do that on Rumble, because YouTube, Facebook, all those sorts of things, they won't necessarily, they won't like what we have to say. Oh, shout out to Joe too on Facebook. Came across your show, first time listener, love to keep it up. Yeah, we broadcast Fridays, 10 o'clock to 11 on all the platforms. We move over to Rumble only for another half hour, 45 minutes after that. You can find us on Rumble. Go to rumble.com. In the little search bar, The American Tribune. That's the name of all of our platforms. We have websites. We create a lot of content. Wells is one of our best written content guys. But Alice, before we let the folks go on some of the platforms, what message do you have for those guys?
Just really excited for the next 4 years. This election's huge. I'm very optimistic about where we're heading, both, financially, economically, and just all around. So yeah, really excited, guys.
All right. Well, like I say, I don't always do the I don't always do the video stuff. So if I screw any of this up, I apologize, folks. But those on Rumble, stay tuned in. I want to see that Rumble number pop. We always get the Rumble number to go up because people leave Facebook and go, I'll go find these clowns over there. So, all right, we'll see you on the flip side in 60 seconds, folks.